either one of these any good?
Wow, this is a good movie.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, well, the director from yesterday doesn't think so.
It stinks.
You sorry? You waste our film.
It's so bad. The screening room is open, and we've got a bunch. For the big screen and for home streaming, welcome. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
We are from madwolf.com. Let's start off right at the top, one we've been looking forward to for a while. Latest from Jeff Nichols. After a chance encounter, headstrong Kathy is drawn to Benny, member of Midwestern motorcycle club, the Vandals. As the club transforms into a dangerous underworld of violence, Benny must choose between Kathy and his loyalty to the club. It's the Bikeriders.
I want you to quit riding.
Don't ask that.
Benny. I need you.
You can't have him.
If he wants to ride a bike, he'll ride a bike. Hey, you know, just think it over, you know.
I would put Jeff Nichols easily in my top 5 all-time favorite filmmakers.
Man, he's really not had a miss
Not
yet.
a one.
Really. I mean, we've loved everything that he's done. And it was interesting because back, we told this story before, back when we went to see it was the sneak preview premiere of A Quiet Place 2,
Yep.
right? And we went to Cleveland, and we didn't even know it, but John Krasinski showed up,
Yeah.
and which was very cool, and he took some questions afterwards. And at that time, the next one was set to be directed by Jeff Nichols.
Which is weird, really.
And when he said that, and we were like, yeah, and we were clapping, he goes, oh, some Jeff Nichols fans in there. We're like, yes.
That's
so
right.
It didn't work out, and apparently he left that to make this. You know, things work out. They just work out the way they do sometimes. And this one has had a weird path toward distribution.
Yeah.
For a while, it seemed like it wasn't even going to get released.
Yeah,
you know?
well, because it was supposed to come out last year during the SAG strike. And, it's not one of those movies that's going to have a giant marketing, push behind it. It was going to require that its leads do a lot of publicity. That was how they were going to get the word out, which they couldn't do.
Yeah.
Hung on to it, and now finally, because it does feel like we've been waiting over a year to see this movie.
Yeah.
Finally, it's out.
Yeah, so here we are, and it's writer-director Jeff Nichols, and it is based upon a book of photographs about this 1960s motorcycle club. And in the film, they're called the Vandals, led by Tom Hardy, and his sort of, I guess you'd call second in command, maybe, Benny, played by Austin Butler. And then Kathy, played by Jodie Comer, comes in. She's really, the movie is set up by her interviews with a guy who's named Danny, who's played by Mike Feist, Columbus, Ohio native Mike Feist, who's sort of standing in for the author of the original book, doing these interviews, and it's through those interviews with Kathy that we're brought into this world,
right?
And as she is, and she's sucked in, and she falls hard for Benny right away. They're married barely a month after they meet.
Right,
they're married, and boom, she's in to this world big time. And as the movie goes on, it becomes a sort of, as you deemed it, a different kind of love triangle.
Yeah,
because Benny is looked upon by Johnny, Tom Hardy's character, as maybe his successor to the quote-unquote throne. Well, Kathy is the thing standing in the way of his complete devotion, and it becomes a very interesting triangle.
It really does, and it's a fascinating way to set this up because it's such a cultural shift story that is telling such a slice of American history, and it's a watershed moment, the late 1960s into the 1970s, and particularly for sort of fringe culture. And it's the way that this is shot. It's so gorgeous. It looks every
shot on film, number one.
Yeah,
which
as he always does.
Yeah, which is great. And
but it looks like a vintage postcard.
It does. It looks fantastic the way it's set up. It just looks great. The performances are fantastic. The 3 leads that we've already mentioned, but you've also got an ensemble that includes Michael Shannon and Boyd Holbrook and Norman Reedus. Also Damon Harriman, who's you might not know his name, but we've loved him all the way back to 100 Bloody Acres.
Yeah.
He was in The Nightingale and a bunch of stuff. It's a great ensemble.
It is. It's a great ensemble. And Tom Hardy is just astonishing in this movie, as of course he always is. He just does, and he's very Brando to a very James Dean,
Yeah, very
Austin
much so.
Butler. But I think that it's Jodie Comer who kind of owns the movie, partly because, of course, she's like the voiceover of the whole film. She kind of narrates the whole film. But also she just creates, I guess, based on, she got a chance to listen to pretty obsessively the recordings of the interviews with this actual character on which she's based. But she has such an unusual Midwestern accent, and it's just such a weird lyrical way to set this film up.
Yeah, at first it's a little bit off-putting, but then you get used to it, and it becomes very, not really soothing, but you're used to it then. And it's the way she accompanies the accent with her facial expressions, really creating this very indelible character.
Yeah.
And you're right, she is the main soul of the movie, and really the main performance of the movie. And she's great, and it becomes, you're right, very Brando to very James Dean.
Yeah.
And the movie itself, as it goes along, takes on this you'll see Goodfellas in it. You'll see, of course, The Wild One, speaking of Brando. And then as it goes along and this power struggle goes along, it becomes very Shakespearean as well.
Absolutely, I
as
agree.
it leads toward, then there's some rival gangs. There are some, as the motorcycle club grows, more and more people want to be in it. And so they'll maybe do very desperate things to get in it.
And Hardy's character, he starts to lose control. He sees that it's, and then he's looking for his successor. Yeah, it does. It takes on a very Shakespearean, I think, theme.
Yeah, and as far as a straight narrative, it sort of wanders. It's very patient, but it certainly does have the conflict and an arc and an end game. But it's also a lot of motorcycle riding.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, the two things that we both came away, and we weren't speaking about this during the movie, of course, but I wrote down in my notebook, cultural shift.
Yep.
And you said the same thing. And it takes you inside these characters at this time in American history that, everything was shifting. And it's a fascinating look at it. And you're right, it is just gorgeous to look at.
Gorgeous.
And a fantastic ensemble.
And shot in and around Ohio, where we're based.
Around Cincinnati,
of course,
and maybe some northern Kentucky, I think, but down in that area. For sure. And he's shot in Ohio before.
Yes. Take Shelter is a masterpiece.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a really great experience after waiting all this time for these characters. And I've never seen the book that it's based on, but just knowing that a movie is based on a book of photographs, you can kind of feel that. You feel pages turning, and you say how, and you've already mentioned how the movie is shot sometimes like a picture postcard. It just kind of feels that way. Very, very lyrical, very book-like. Chapters are turning, pages are turning, and it really sucks you into a world a lot like Goodfellas. That's another one of the things that reminded me of Goodfellas. How you're brought into this world from a woman who comes in outside of it. That's our eyes to this new world and getting used to it. And it's a fascinating film experience that you feel sort of surrounds you, I think, as you spend time with all these characters inside this club. So it's one that we really enjoyed, and another winner for Jeff Nichols. And keep him coming, man, because he has got a nice winning streak going all the way back to Shotgun Stories, his debut in 2007 with Michael Shannon. I think Michael Shannon has been in every one of his
every
movies,
single one of his
so
movies.
that's fine too.
Yeah.
That is fine too.
Yeah, that's never a bad decision.
Never a bad thing. So the Bikeriders, check it out in theaters now. Well, let's stay in theaters for a comedy. When 93-year-old Thelma Post gets duped by a phone scammer pretending to be her grandson, she sets out on a treacherous quest across the city to reclaim what was taken from her. It's Thelma.
Things happen to people as they age. Weird, crazy things.
We're old, diminished. The least we can do is take care of each other.
She's a tough cookie.
When she sets her mind to something, there's no stopping her.
My grandson's parked a block away. I don't have much time.
You left your grandson in the car?
But he's 24. We all have our good days and our bad days.
And what's today?
We'll find out.
Grandma? No, sorry. I'm just looking for my grandma. Sorry.
June Squibb.
June Squibb, a delight. I
A
know
delight.
That will shock you in this from writer-director Josh Margolin. And one of the things that hit me like right away, because you see these comedies, and we see them more and more often, and they do pretty well about older people, which is great.
Yes.
You know, I love that. But too often, it's just set up to laugh at these old people.
Oh, yeah. Look at them eating hot wings.
Right.
Listen
Or
to them saying
talking
sausage.
about sex.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You know, which to me is, I
Not
have no
funny at all.
interest in
No,
that. No.
no.
This, right in the first few minutes, you get the feeling that we're not going to be doing that with this.
Right.
We're going to be laughing with the old people and with other people as well. And also it sets up, really with the first scene, that Thelma, played, of course, by June Squibb, and her 24-year-old grandson, Daniel, played by Fred Heckinger, who you may remember from News of the World, so good in a small part.
So good.
That they have a very warm, sweet, authentic relationship.
They really
that
do.
That first scene, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I believe every bit of this.
Yes, you love him.
You love him?
You love him, and you think, of course she would do this to get him out of jail.
Yeah.
Of course she would
because
be duped by this.
He's patiently teaching her about computers and how to do things. And then she gets this phone call that the voice on the phone really sounds like Danny. He's been arrested. And then another voice, Malcolm McDowell, comes on the phone, and I need $10,000 right now to get him out of jail. Next thing you know, she's dropped off the $10,000, and everybody sorts it out. You've got, grandson Danny, who of course is fine. And then his parents, played by Parker Posey and Clark Gregg, everybody sorts out that it's been a scam, but she's already dropped the cash. And the cops don't really offer much help, so she decides, all right, she's just going to get it back herself. So she enlists her friend Ben, played by the late, great Richard Roundtree, and they go by to collect her other friend Mona's gun, and they're going to use Ben's brand new shiny scooter and go across L.A. and get this money. So that turns in, it's sort of like a heist kind of caper thing, but it's madcap funny. And the thing about it is, sure, you've got these old people, and because Ben is in his 80s and he realizes that they're, quote, old and diminished. And Thelma talks about how all her friends are either dead or they've got sepsis.
Or they moved to Cleveland.
But at the same time, the other generations are having trouble as well.
Exactly.
I mean, the grandson, Danny, he's having a real hard time accepting adulthood. He's got a lot of anxiety, a lot of problems, worrying that maybe taking care of his grandma is the only good thing he can do.
Right.
And then his parents are having trouble letting go.
Yeah, they're just they're a big ball of anxiety as well.
They are.
But what I love about that, I love that. I love that the movie is like, why are we laughing at these old people? Everybody is having these same kind of problems.
Right.
But also that it's so forgiving of them all. It doesn't dislike any of the characters. The movie doesn't, which I love.
Yeah, and when Thelma says at one point, we all have our good days and bad days. And Ben says, well, what day is this? We're going to find out. And they go taking off. So it's just delightful. Is it something you're going to remember for very long? Not really, but it's a really fun experience. It's funny, and the laughs get a little slapsticky, get a little madcappy, but they're organic and they're sweet. And and of course, June Squibb is just and she's like 95 years old. And she's doing well.
Oh, she is doing well.
And it is just delightful. So we had a lot of fun with laughing with the older people and everybody else, and not just at them. And that is in theaters now, and it's called Thelma. Oh, another winner on the big screen this week, animated, The Adventures and Misfortunes of Dog and Robot in New York City during the 1980s. This is Oscar nominated from last year. It's called Robot Dreams. So yeah, this was nominated for Best Animated Feature last year, and The Boy in the Heron won, which was great. Hard to argue with.
Yeah, but still,
man, this one is so good.
It wouldn't have broken my heart, and that's hard to say because you know what a Miyazaki fan I am.
I know.
But yeah, this and then got the elusive 5-star review.
At madwolf.com.
We
5
essentially
stars.
said it's perfect.
It's so good. It doesn't have any dialogue.
Nope.
It does have, though, pretty frequent use of one of the greatest songs of all time, Earth, Wind, and Fire's September. They use that song a lot, so
They do.
yes.
In many different ways. And then just it is the most charming movie. And one of the things I think that sets it apart from most other animated films is that, it's children will enjoy it. Every adult should see it. I mean, you will love this movie. It's so well made. It's so heartbreaking and heartwarming.
Yes.
And forgiving and full of anxiety. And there are countless movies about love, about, romance, but there are very few movies that nail friendship, best friend friendship, as well as this movie does.
Yeah, and this is from co-writer and director Pablo Berger. And the dog basically gets this mail order robot as a best friend. And things happen, and we don't want to spoil anything at all, but it gets to a point where, I think at one point where we were watching it, got to a pivotal point, and we both went, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
And it just, you're hanging on these choices with these friends and the devotion of the robot, and whether it is repaid by the dog, and it's tender, and it's unexpected, and it's warm, and you said it's heartbreaking, and it's just lovely.
It is, and it has these surreal flourishes, partly as when the robot has dreams, which is the name of the title, but also, it spills over into Dog's life too, because there's this really interesting episode with a snowman. It's a fascinating movie. I mean, I was so caught up with everything.
Yeah, it's just so enchanting, and will just really moves your emotions in an unexpected way. You might look at this, a robot and a dog, but trust us, this is such an emotional wave that you're uplifted, even though it's also heartbreaking in a way.
Yeah.
By the end, you are uplifted with it, and it's a great look at friendship. And you could move it over and say, well, this could apply to romantic relationships as well.
For sure.
But mostly about friendships. Yeah, and it is just downright lovely. And Robot Dreams, hopefully it's in your area. After the Oscar nomination last year, it's getting a wider rollout in theaters. Cannot recommend it enough. It's out now. Well, let's go to Netflix for a documentary tracing the origin of the first black Barbie doll to the filmmaker's aunt, who asked why Barbie couldn't look like her. It's a documentary that explores her quest for representation and diversity. It's Black Barbie.
This is me at the creator of Barbie. At Mattel's, I worked on the lines. She would say, do you have any suggestions? I was able to say, we want a black Barbie.
That was a little act of revolution.
I'm a black magic girl.
I designed Black Barbie to reflect the total look of a black woman.
She's black, she's beautiful, she's dynamite.
I thought Black Barbie felt magical.
From a young age, children can learn about inclusiveness.
Really pretty as looks, just like me.
Black Barbie was just taking me to a whole different world.
I knew Black Barbie was different, but I never realized the magnitude.
When did you first fall in love with Black Barbie?
When I first got one in my hand.
This movie actually spawned a lengthy text conversation between me and my many sisters.
Right, that's right.
I have a twin sister. We're the youngest of 6, and at one point we inherited our older sister Ellen's shoebox full of Barbie dolls, and she had a black Barbie, and it had the kind that had eyelashes, that stuck out from the face. It was gorgeous, and all our lives, my twin sister and I thought that this was a Lola Falana doll. I don't know why. I'm not entirely sure who Lola Falana is, but we always thought that's who it was, and I learned because of this movie, it was actually Diane Carroll. It was a Julia doll.
Yes, Diane Carroll was. That's one of the things that comes out in this movie that was an inspiration from one of the dolls. And I learned a lot because you remember how much I learned from the Barbie movie.
The end, the end where they go through the whole history of all the Barbies.
I didn't know there was a pregnant Barbie. I didn't know any of that. So I'm learning even more with this because even though there were black dolls, it took a while before there was actually a black Barbie.
Right.
The dolls had different names, not Barbie.
Right.
And so I learned that and a bunch of other stuff that's really fascinating. And the fact that this writer-director, Ligeria Davis, it was her aunt who worked at Mattel and who went basically to say to the top of the corporate chain there in Mattel and said, why can't we have, black dolls?
Yeah.
And so that's just, as the movie points out, is a little act of revolution there.
Oh,
and darn right. And so it got the ball rolling. And there are lots of different designs, not only of the doll, but of clothes for the dolls. And then the fact that they finally did do one called Black Barbie. And it also points out to anyone who may not realize how important representation is.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big, big message of the early part of the documentary. And it cites this, I believe it's called the Clark study, the Clark experiment from 1940, about giving, where they gave these children a white doll and a black doll and then asked questions about what they thought. What doll would be this? What doll would be that? And it was so enlightening on the effect of not seeing yourself in society, in culture, in toys for kids.
Mm-hmm.
It was so enlightening that I guess it was cited as one of the reasons behind the Brown versus Board of Education decision.
Wow.
It was just, it gave so much insight in the fact that harm can be done to these children at such a young age who begin, if they don't see themselves, begin identifying negatively with their own self-image. That how important it is to see things, not only in dolls, on the screen, on TV, so many things, representation. So that is fascinating. It teaches you a lot, and then it traces the evolution of the doll, starting with having different names and then finally getting Black Barbie and different clothes and different styles and things like that. So yeah.
So what you mean by that, for anybody who's at all unclear, Barbie has loads of friends who have other names, like Skipper, right? And they would have, she did over the years have friends, right? Dolls who were black dolls. I had one, Christy.
I think the first one was named Francie, I think.
But then eventually there was a Barbie, just the top of the heap, the alpha Barbie, and she was black, and that was revolutionary.
Yes, very, very important. Took a few years to get there, but they did get there. So you see that evolution, very enlightening, very educational for people like me. Obviously, I didn't know much about Barbies in general, especially about this part of it. But it's really, really worth it. And you also see, the inspiration that the doll gave to people, adults now, like Shonda Rhimes, the very, very successful producer. She is a part of this, a producer on this film, and they talk to her so much about how Barbie's meant to her growing up, and the black Barbies, and other people as well. So, and then they talk to not only the aunts, but other people that were involved there from the very, very beginning. And it's just, it's fascinating, especially coming on the heels of the monster hit from last year, Barbie, that brought Barbie back in the conversation, to go a little bit deeper into it. Yeah, I thought it was very, very worthwhile and educational and very enlightening as well. And it's on Netflix now, and it's called Black Barbie, a documentary. Let's go back to theaters for a comedy that follows Cora, who feels that her relationship is not going well. She goes back home to win her girlfriend back, but she will realize that it's much more than her love life that needs salvaging. It's called Cora Bora.
Are you and Justine still together?
Of course.
Who's that girl?
Just some chick. Mom, what are you doing here? Riley's been helping your dad with his back?
She has magic hands.
Ugh. Are you stalking me?
No.
Why don't you go back to LA?
Love is a joke.
You are the one that left for my career. I don't buy that.
But when are you playing again?
We're not.
Meet Cora. She has a mean set of pipes.
Should we make love? You're like the only person that likes me. I'm coming for you! Awesome.
Champagne, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll take a bowl.
Okay.
Tall.
This is a film that's, I think, kind of based around the comedy of Megan Stalter, who I don't know that she does stand-up. She does a lot of videos.
She's the star here.
She is the star. She plays Cora. And her character in this movie, and I think in most of her videos, is just somebody who just obliviously does the most outrageous things. And it's an interesting character because in a lot of ways, you just want to smack her, but they are funny. The situations that she gets herself into and the way that she responds to them, kind of cringy funny, but the comedy works. I think that the reason the film works is because you know that there is some reason that she behaves in this way. And eventually you find that out. And it's fairly organic. And it's also not one of those situations where you think she was a perfectly upright, lovely human being. And all of a sudden this sort of tragedy has turned her into this train wreck. What you realize is that she probably always was a little bit of a train wreck. And these behaviors have just amplified as a way to sort of isolate her from her pain.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not sure that would work either, except that Stalter is really, really good. Obviously, the comedy part she's got nailed, but when it comes to like the it's very authentic the way that she builds up walls and at the same time is vulnerable. It's quite a fascinating character to watch unravel.
This is writer Rhiannon Jones and director Hannah Pearl Utt.
The movie, I think. Sometimes it falls into the trap of just feeling like sketches. And then also the arc comes to an end way too quickly. She's like, what kind of hits the climax and then she sees the error in her ways. That all feels a bit stagey and not in any way as realistic as the rest of the comedy or film had been. But that's not reason to avoid it. I think it was a really funny, great emphasis of the talent of this woman.
Mm-hmm. And that is called Cora Bora, and it's in theaters now. Let's stay in theaters for a horror thriller. A troubled actor begins to exhibit a disruptive behavior while shooting a horror film. His estranged daughter wonders if he's slipping back into his past addictions or if there's something more sinister at play. Russell Crowe back fighting demons in The Exorcism.
He's off his meds. He's erratic. Father, what do I do?
I was saved once. Didn't believe that it could happen again.
Can he be saved?
He's not worth saving, and you know it.
I know you're afraid. Me too. It's all right to be afraid. Have faith. He will protect his children. When it happens, run.
And this is little Vespa, George.
That's right.
As the Pope's exorcist, he drove around on this adorable little scooter. This movie is not like that. I mean, it's funny to me that he's playing an exorcist in two different films, but this movie, The Exorcism, is not like that. He's an actor, and he has inherited a role in what is called the Georgetown Project, which is...
Wink, wink.
Right. So they're remaking the movie The Exorcist. And he gets the role, kind of, something terrible happens on set, and he winds up getting the role. But he's a famous actor, but he hasn't made a movie in several years because he drank himself into rehab and then was in rehab for 2 years. And he's got an estranged relationship with a 16-year-old daughter because, of course, she lived through all of that terrible part. And so the movie is a mixed bag. A lot of times it's got some interesting things to parallel the demon within with addiction, which I thought they were doing something very interesting with that. But then they bring in sort of the evil of, the history of Catholicism and an abuse. So does that become the metaphor that they're pulling through? And then, so it becomes muddy. It's also definitely, it takes its time before it gets to any real horror. I mean, it's a slow burn for a very long time. But then when it finally does turn the corner and it is horror, boy, the conveniences, like the leaps of logic are borderline dumbfounding. I mean, there's, there are several scenes where just the size of Russell Crowe alone, he's a big human, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, for that scene to have turned into this scene, you're telling me that two 18-year-old girls and Fraser's brother, because David Hyde Pierce is also in the film. These three tiny, skinny people were supposed to be moving the likely demon-possessed. Oh, it was just there's just so many of those where it's like, we've got a good scene, fade to black, how in the hell did we get to this next scene? Well, we're not going to tell you.
Yeah, you mentioned David Hyde Pierce. He's part of the ensemble, as well as Sam Worthington, Chloe Bailey, Adrian Pasdar in here as well. And it's from, interesting, the writer, the co-writer and director is Joshua John Miller, who has done many things over the years, acting, a lot of it, but he hasn't directed a film in over 20 years. This is his first directing of, I think is really his second ever, and it's been over 20 years since he directed a film. So he's back in the lead here, at the helm here, and co-writing as well. So it's one that's in the theaters now. It is rated R, anymore, at least for me, for a horror film, I want to look, all right, are we talking PG-13 or are we talking R? But as you said, it takes a while to get there.
It does, and then when it gets there, it's not worth the wait.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. And that is Russell Crowe without the Vespa this time. It is The Exorcism in theaters now. Let's go to VOD for a comedy drama romance. Fernando, a talented chef, arrives at the village of Cadaqués during the 70s, residence of the internationally renowned Salvador Dali. The paths of the chef and the artist will cross and cause the birth of a new culinary genius. It's called Waiting for Dali.
¿Y por qué tienes tantos maniquíes, Jules?
Están esperando a Dali.
Disculpa, no ha venido.
This is not like Waiting for Godot. Dali definitely does show up. I mean, he is living there, as it's said, in the 70s, and it's this fishing village in Spain, and he's there living his, eclectic lifestyle. And these two brothers, one of them, as it said in the synopsis there, a very talented chef, they arrive there. They're sort of on the run from the brothers' protest activities back in Barcelona, protesting the reign of Francisco Franco. And they have to get out of town. And so they arrive at this village, and the old chef at this restaurant quits. And so Fernando gets hired, and he's a fantastic chef. And the owner of the restaurant, which is called El Surreal, his main goal, because the restaurant is just decorated with things that you might see in a Dali painting, he wants Dali to come and visit the restaurant. And he can't get to him, but he can get to Gala, his longtime partner, who says, well, it's going to cost $10,000 if you want him to come eat. And then the next time she says, it's going to cost $15,000. So it doesn't look good, but he keeps trying to lure Dali to the restaurant. That's his big aim, while the authorities seem to be getting closer and closer to tracking down these brothers, the one brother in particular. And in the meantime, some budding romances start. It's beautiful to look at. It is a lot of fun. I mean, it's got some madcap comedy to it as well. It also has some political, undertones, as you might guess, from the being on the run from the Franco regime and things like that in the 1970s. But it's beautiful to look at. Yes, it will make you hungry. The food looks fantastic. My Lord. It does run a little bit long. It's pushing 2 hours, and that seems like it's a little bit bloated. But it is enjoyable, and especially if you're, the title caught me right away. I'm a big fan of Dali as an artist. And he's not a big part of this movie, but he is a little bit of a part of it. And so that is fun too. But it's really more about art and inspiration and following your dreams, and a little bit about love as well. And a little, as I said, a little bit of a layer of political upheaval. And so it is worth it. Just a little bit long, but I enjoyed it. It's co-writer and director David Pujol. And it is on VOD now, Waiting for Dali. Let's stay with Netflix for an action thriller. A skilled Special Forces commando takes ownership of her father's bar after he suddenly dies. Soon finds herself at odds with a violent gang running rampant in her hometown. Trigger warning.
So what do you do for the government?
How's on?
What do you know about Senator Swan?
What the hell you got into? How much does Parker know about this? Too much.
This is about more than just my dad. I need to know the truth.
If you pivot on that back foot, you won't punch like such a little bitch.
You want to know what really happened to Harry?
Don't nobody know my troubles was gone.
Yeah, new person at the bar has to fight off the local baddies. What does that remind you of? It's not quite Roadhouse, but yeah, it's Jessica Alba. She's starring. I believe she's a producer here as well. And she is Parker, who comes back from her special ops type of dealings in the military because her father has died under maybe mysterious circumstances. So, yeah, she's going to take over his bar, maybe sell it, what's going on. And then next thing you know, she's thinking that dad was maybe murdered. He didn't really commit suicide like they're saying. Then she's got a friend who can hack into any sort of computer system in an instant, and he's finding these dark web dealings because, it's all about the dark web.
It's always the dark web.
It's always the dark web. And these videos and everything. So it just goes on, and she's got to sort it out. And, of course, there's a bad senator in town played by Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh, yeah, sure.
He shows up as they're in this, I think they're in Arizona or somewhere like that. That seems to be the landscape. And, everything is just sea level. Nothing against Jessica. Nothing against women actresses being badasses because they can be.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, definitely. I'm not.
Remember
saying
Allison Janney as that aging spy?
Yeah.
She was 100% like that.
Charlize Theron, of course, Michelle Rodriguez.
Oh
yes,
my God,
all
yes.
day. This is not very convincing. It's just not. The fight choreography,
weak. The fight choreography is weak.
Situations that she's in, it's just, it's just not very believable. Her skill, her specialty is knives. Okay, that's great. But as they get into this plot about all these weapons dealings, it's amazing how many situations she's in where there are no guns around and she can defend herself with just a knife. Every other time that they're dealing in all these guns, there are guns everywhere. So it's just, it's very, very convenient and just obviously, it's very convenient and very sea level in most areas, and one that, I imagine, was engineered for streaming from the very, very beginning.
Right.
And as one of these action thrillers goes, it's just very, very
Yeah, very.
And just one where, again, we always say it with these streamers that you really don't have to pay that close of attention to it, and you'll figure out who the bad guys are and what's really going on and where it probably is going to end up. So,
and if you're on Netflix anyway, just watch Black Barbie.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. So that is out now, new on Netflix, called Trigger Warning. Mystery thriller next on VOD. Struggling schoolteacher Madison strikes a lucrative book deal to help solve her financial troubles. As she dives into her dark past surrounding the college town slayings, she realizes it may still be part of her present after all. It's called Queen Rising.
Police have found what can only be described as a brutal and disturbing scene. Do you remember the college town slayings?
I think everybody in the country remembers the college town slaying.
I was right in the middle of it. Police are not giving any further information regarding the suspects' names. It seems the killer is still on the loose. Stay safe, everyone.
Eva Fraser reviewed this one for us at madwolf.com. And there's a lot that's worth liking in this movie, but not enough. And it's one of those mysteries where inside of 5 minutes, you've unraveled it. So then it's just kind of a test of endurance, sitting through how the film kind of, dots its I's and crosses its T's before it gets to the finish line that you saw coming the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's just probably not one that's really worth your time.
And you can check out Eva's full review at madwolf.com. That is on VOD now, called Queen Rising. Got a drama next in select theaters. A young couple in Senegal must contend with the disapproval of their remote village, Banal and Adama.
Eden Bilti. Hande komin holben.
Matt Weiner reviewed this one for us at madwolf.com. Loved it.
He did.
It's one of those, the star-crossed lover story, which is so common for good reason, in film. And it's just got such a fresh twist in this film. It's sometimes hypnotic. It's sometimes frustrating. The performances are wonderful. Just really worth seeking out if this happens to be playing in your area.
Yeah, this is the writer and director is Ramada Toulay Sai. Hope I pronounced that right. But yeah, Matt loved it. Check out his full review at madwolf.com. It is in those select theaters now, called Banal and Adama. And one more. This one is out on VOD and in select theaters. A drama. A recent graduate becomes entangled in a relationship with a man and a woman during her summer after college. It's called Chestnut.
Where did you meet these people?
I really like it here right now. Where'd you come from?
Tyler likes to think that her opinion is the be-all, end-all.
You know, you're a really nice person.
So are you.
No, I'm not.
I just wouldn't overthink things with her.
I don't have a lot of people that mean something to me.
You don't get it. No, I guess I don't.
Rachel Willis reviewed this one for us, and it's a lovely sort of semi-erotic slice of life, kind of coming of age, sort of coming of summer, really. I mean, it's one of those movies that really meditates and kind of, floats along in a summer in between your responsibilities and sees what can happen. And a lot of it is really good. Unfortunately, the lead performance is a little unrealistic and stands out a bit, which obviously kind of lessens the overall impact of the movie. But on the whole, pretty good.
This is writer-director Jack Crone. I believe it's her feature debut, and you can check out Rachel's complete review at madwolf.com. It's called Chestnut, out on VOD and in select theaters now. Schlocketeer still vacationing this week. We'll check in with him next week. And speaking of next week, well, we already mentioned a little bit ago, we were talking about A Quiet Place Part 2. Well, now it's time for the next phase. A Quiet Place Day 1 comes out next week.
Also, Kinds of Kindness.
Yeah, Yorgos. Looking forward to that. One called Daddy-O.
Devil's Bath.
A Family Affair.
Green Border.
She Watches Blindly.
Solo.
Janet Planet.
And Midas.
Okay, that's all next week. But a lot to talk about this week. Bikeriders, Thelma, Robot Dreams, Black Barbie. What do you think? Let us know. It's easy to keep the conversation going. You can find us Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Threads as well. And we love to talk the movies, either this week's selections or something that you've seen recently. Bring it on. And until next week, be well. Try to stay cool if it's 96 degrees where you are, like it is here. And until then, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Screening Room Podcast.
See ya.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Bye.
Were you born on the sun? It's damn hot.